Welcome to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. This is the place to learn how to get through your worst rock bottom and start to embrace adversity. I'm your host, Petra Belzebor. I'm a therapist and a life coach, but my biggest learning is from my own rock bottom. My story includes being raised in a cult, dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and alcoholism. But along the way, I've learned to turn my entire life around to one of success, joy, and fulfillment. So in this podcast, I'll be talking to people from all walks of life who've done the same. I'll be teasing out the skills and tools necessary, as well as using my own experience to teach you how to turn your adversity into your biggest advantage. Welcome everyone to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. Today I'm very excited to introduce Beverly Jones. So she's from Awaken Coaching. She's also an author, a speaker, and a coach from South Wales. Welcome, Beverly.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks for joining us. That gives us a little snippet about what you do, but fill in the blanks for our listeners. What are you most passionate about at the moment in work and in life?
In work, I have a few passions, actually.
Sure.
The business has kind of diversified a little bit. I started out doing life coaching 8 years ago. But the business now has three kind of separate angles, all of which I'm passionate about. One is around the Awaken Business Club and small businesses. So people who start up and grow and want to grow, but find sometimes just, especially if they're on their own, that kind of, I can't do it, I don't know where to go next, So offering support and guidance through people starting up their businesses. I work a lot around, I've got a corporate angel program, which works with the larger kind of blue chip companies and large organizations, and that's based around mental health in the workplace, which is as a result of my own burnout 9 years ago. So I kind of work a lot in that part of the industry. And then the others is kind of speaking and events. So either attending events as a speaker or indeed running events. I've got a business show now I'm running in June, and a mind, body, spirit, healthy, wealthy living show, very different sides of the coin, in October. So kind of keep busy, but those are the three angles really: small businesses, mental health in the workplace, and the events. And all, I would say, have a theme around mental health and well-being at their core. That's my passion.
Definitely sounds busy.
You
sound very passionate, and what I always realize on doing these interviews is that I personally always learn something, which is what I love about doing this. And interestingly, I'm 6-7 weeks into having fully quit my day job, and I'm freshly in business.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm also, my business is mental health consultancy, so I'm doing lots of training and consultancy around mental health in the workplace.
Fantastic.
Based on my own experience as well, because that's how we learn and what sort of can fuel our passion, even though really it's adversity, right? So burnout for you and all sorts of things for me. But it can really be the thing that propels us to have purpose within our work. So I'm excited about this conversation. So give us a little bit of context about, how you started out. What was your childhood like? Do you think your parents and the education system prepared you for sort of life in the adult world?
I had an amazing childhood. So my childhood, I was born in Raglan, which is a little village here in South Wales. Just loved it. Loved my childhood. My parents certainly did equip me, and still equip me every single day, I have to say. If I want anything, I just am very, very fortunate and very blessed to still be able to turn to them. They were brilliant, and I had a great family life. So we were very close as a family, very close to my grandparents, very close to my siblings. Just a lovely childhood. I was a bit bullied in comprehensive school in the kind of 11 to 16 years weren't the greatest, but I knew as soon as I got on the bus and I went home that I would literally be able to go back to that safe, secure place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you knew you had that safe haven.
I had that safe haven. Yeah. And so that was brilliant for me. Absolutely amazing. School was okay. Didn't really do much to succeed in school, I have to say. I only left school, which shows my age, saying 4 CSEs, which were, not even GCSE level, but below that. And that was a lot to do with the fact of the bullying and just wanting to get out. Just didn't want to be in school.
Did teachers and parents sort of know about the bullying?
Not really. My mum says, no, I didn't know about that back then, and I think in those days bullying wasn't like it is today, in that it's not as, the profile wasn't quite as high. Does that make sense?
To get on with it, right?
You just get on with it, and crack on, sort of thing.
Toughen up.
So I did tell people, I did tell teachers, but not a lot was really done about it. And my parents, no, I didn't really trouble them with it. I just I knew I could just go to work, go to school. I had some very close friendships in school, some of which still remain today.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And one friend in particular would always kind of be in my corner, if you like, and have my back, as they say. So, while it was horrible and not a nice situation, I was able to walk away every day and get on the bus and go back to Raglan, which all these the bullies, if you like, lived in the local town. So I never had any involvement with them outside school.
Did you ever refuse to go to school or try to get out of going to school or truant?
Yeah. I had, I had I got stomach ache, got cold, all those sorts of things. So yeah, I tried to get out of it. When I was in school, would just do everything I can, like an avoidance, just try and get downtown or avoid wherever these people were. I would always avoid those situations. I used to love netball, but they were in the netball team, so I kind of gave up on netball. So little things like that, which now looking back are irritating because,
it affected your path or the aspirations.
It did,
you might have had.
Absolutely. And my choices, when I did my choices in which classes I was going to take when you get to 13, I kind of was very deliberately chose the ones they weren't in. So,
right.
The fact I didn't particularly like some of the stuff I did it because they weren't in it. So, that kind of affected it, I suppose. But it certainly didn't affect me or my life long term. I did discover when I went through my mental health burnout 9 years ago that I'd kind of filed a lot of that stuff away. I spoke to the counsellor, and I describe it now as having a filing cabinet in my brain, and I just kind of had stuck it in a file and shut the drawer on it, and that was how I kind of dealt with it.
More avoidance in a way.
Yeah, until I kind of, as I said, went through the burnout, and then it did all kind of come spilling out, and some of the things that were affecting me at that time were again linked to some stuff in the workplace. It all kind of joined together and worked out,
Burnout's an interesting one. It really, truly is a build-up over years.
And bullying and all that kind of stuff. And I think now looking back on it, probably, I'd been bullied in the workplace as well. But I now realise, since I've accepted that, I can't describe it really. I've accepted that I'm not the problem. Does that make sense? That it's their problem, not my problem.
That you're not to blame. It's not your fault that it happened. Yeah. You're not a bad person. Since that point, thankfully, I haven't come across any other bullies. So I stood up. Yeah, I stood up to a bully. A bit of as 8 years. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I came across somebody who again was a bully, and at this point in time, I stood up to them and I reported them to the CEO. And wow,
that's a lot of stuff done. Yeah, and it was massive, for me, because it actually meant that I dealt with it. And I hadn't realised until that point that it needed to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But once I stood up to them, and all of that other stuff that had happened was like, if only I'd done that back then,
Sure.
But I did. And now since then, it's not happened. So I kind of think I'm a great believer in you will keep getting the same experiences time after time after time in life until the one day you deal with it. And when you've dealt with it, you no longer have those experiences present themselves.
Isn't it annoying? But
it's true. It is annoying. You think,
so bloody annoying. You're like, haven't I learned this already?
I know.
But really good to reiterate for our listeners. So just because it's coming up again, it just means it's a different angle that you've got to learn how to deal with.
Deal with it.
Don't avoid.
Don't avoid. Just don't avoid it. Accept it's happening and deal with it. And the minute you deal with it, you can walk free of it, and it will not come up. I certainly not in my life had it come up as another experience. Same as relationships. I had bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship.
Yeah.
Until the last one I dealt with.
The thing that kept repeating.
Yeah, it kept repeating. Ended up as part of the burnout scenario, really, a toxic relationship, all these sort of things. And now I'm with, a lovely guy, and wouldn't know that I'm never ever going to go back there, because I'm not in that position to ever allow myself or accept those situations again. Not that I would ever need to, because he's certainly probably the most,
Sure, but I see what you mean about patterns repeating themselves. And I'm wondering if the early bullying just impacted your confidence in your maybe your intuition about decisions to do with work, or sort of moving on into life?
Strangely enough, what they did do was almost make me go, I'll show you.
Let me prove you wrong. I know that one well.
I'll prove you wrong.
I'll prove
you
everyone
watch
wrong.
This space.
Yeah, you realize nobody's watching, and you're just working hard
because
to prove something to yourself.
Every single exam I've taken ever since, I've passed with a credit or a distinction, or straight A's, or everything. Even starting my own business on the back of my burnout, and the back of the toxic relationship, on the back of the bullying, all of that stuff. I am determined. I've been in business 8 years. And, I regularly do things on local radio, things where I know these people will be listening, and I'm like, I'll show you. I'll show you, Yeah. Wow. And it's a great feeling, it's a great feeling to be able to be successful and almost have that,
So there is something about the adversity being a driver for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. I always have that. I always have right, okay, that was me. Now watch how I come out of that.
Watch me. Okay, so almost looking at it as a challenge to take on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, my personal life has never really been that relationship, certainly, but, not with my parents or any part of my family. I kind of wanted to do it, I suppose. My management career started when I was about 18. Mm-hmm. I trained as a hairdresser, didn't like it. Trained as a secretary, didn't like it. Ended up in management, and absolutely loved management for 30 years, and got to the top of basically reporting in at director level. So kind of not bad for somebody who didn't have any qualifications and no degree.
What did you love about it?
About management?
Yeah.
I just loved working, I loved working with people. And when I wanted to do my own business, I thought, what is it I loved about what I did? And the people were the big thing. Sure. I love people. I'm really interested in people. Yeah. I love, as a manager, watching other people succeed. So I like managing teams where I see other people's successes, which is why I love doing what I do now with either the corporates or with the small businesses, is watching those people succeed, watching those people get something from the help I can give them. Yeah. And I always say to people, the people's success is as important to me as it is to them. And I love it. I love that side of it.
Some fulfillment there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a huge part for me, to see that happening. And when I do my shows, I want people to have a good day. I want people to have clients come through it, or to have a successful day, etc. That's the key for me. So, I think it is coming through that other side and saying, I can show you, I can do it, and I'm going to make it, and I'm going to help other people on the way, and I'm going to do it. It shits with my integrity and the person.
Yeah. And so am I right in understanding correctly that there was a build-up to a burnout, and that led to you? Tell us a bit about the burnout, actually, and I'm interested in how that sort of informed your choices to go into business.
Yeah, I'd always, like I said, I had this corporate career. So I used to work in a film processing company. I did that for 17 years on, in different levels. I used to work for Kodak, so a massive company. Yeah. Worked right up through, managing teams of 200 people, 8 kind of direct line sort of things. I did all of that. Then in my late 30s, decided that I needed to change. I'd gone from managing big groups of people to going into marketing in Kodak. So I'd done some marketing, I'd done some budget management, all that sort of stuff. So I learned operational stuff, I'd learned people skills. I had this massive bundle of things, and I thought, I need to do something now, I need to change my life. So I headed off to Ireland. Like Dick Whittington, with my car all packed up, and didn't know anybody. Right. But what I did know was that I needed to just have a change. So I went to Ireland to, strange enough, marry a farmer and write a book. I hadn't met the farmer, but in my head it was like, that's what I'm going to do. I was going to become an author, and I was going to meet an Irish farmer, and I was going to have this wonderful country life and all of that. But I got promoted 3 times instead. So it just sort of shows you the sort of person I am. I go in and I'm like, oh, okay then. And I ended up there doing account management, and that was with a car leasing company. And then after 3.5 years in Ireland, felt I wanted to come back. My parents were getting older. I had 2 young nephews, really missed my family. I hadn't met the farmer, and I hadn't written any book, and I thought, maybe I'll go back. So I came back, and I moved back to Wales, which was the first time since my 20s. I had 21 house moves in 24 years over the years.
Wow.
So moved around a lot, but ended up deciding to come back to Wales, and I started to work on the railway. That was in 2004. And I started as group station manager, so looked after the whole of kind of South Wales, and had obviously the staff and all the things that went with looking after that railway. And then about 2 years in, they asked me would I do the head of stations role, which I did. I said yes.
And can I just ask, during this process, did you feel happy, fulfilled, a sense of contentment, like... Were you enjoying all this?
Yeah, I did. You know, I had a really good manager there at the time. He was brilliant, and was really, you know, I love learning. So I was learning about new things, and they would say to me, "You're always asking questions," and there was people involvement, customers, staff, you know. So I had all those things that fulfilled everything for me. I then took on the head of stations role, but they said to me, could I do the group station manager at the same time? So I double-hatted and did 2 roles. Wow. Now, head of stations meant that I was looking after the whole of Wales, plus I was looking after South Wales on a different level. So my days literally consisted of me getting up, going out, being with the staff, travelling all over Wales, meeting people, getting home at night, and then doing my admin until the early hours, because I couldn't do my admin, you know, when I was out and about.
So your life was your work. Your work was your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my relationship wasn't good. You know, he wasn't a great person. Now, I don't particularly want to talk about him very much because he's not worthy of it. But you know,
but you're saying there was added stress because of your relationship.
Added stress. This toxic relationship wasn't good. You know, so that kind of added to it. And then I was working long hours. I'd work Saturdays if there was events on, so rugby matches, those sorts of things. Was expected to work sometimes from 8 a.m. till midnight. So long days. You know, it was just that sort of work pressure, work all the time. And just doing the 2 roles really took their toll. You know, I had no free time. I was eating rubbish. I was eating, when I say rubbish, I was eating a lot of fast foods, you know.
Sure,
I was probably...
during this stage, did you have any education, knowledge, or awareness about things like mental health, well-being, burnout, like those sorts of concepts?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Get on with it. I'd started to read a little bit more around the law of attraction, like The Secret and things like that, and suddenly started to realize, you know, what you think about is what you bring to you, and your mind knows no different between vision and reality. But I didn't have time to absorb any of it. It wasn't really making any sense. We're just so busy working. And my manager changed. I relinquished the head of stations role because it went out to went for interview, didn't get it, but I didn't want it anyway. You know, I want to make that very clear. I didn't want the job because I was happy to just do the kind of group station manager. Unfortunately, somebody took over, and that's where it all started to really tumble. Again, you know, I can't really talk about it too much. I'm kind of bound by an agreement, but you know, it just wasn't a healthy environment to be working in. I was working far too many hours. I'd been doing these 2 roles for about a year or so, and it all started to get too much. And I now talk about the 7 signs you're not coping, and I do talks around that, and those sort of things are like, you know, there was persistent sadness. And when I say sadness, it was sadness that would wake me up in the night, but I'd be crying when I woke up. So literally waking up crying. There was the paranoia. Everybody was talking about me, the whole kind of stuff that was going on. Everywhere I went, I felt people were talking about me. As a result, I became very isolated. So I started to shut myself away, turn down invitations from friends. That led to me being really lonely. There was just me and this relationship that I was in and my work, which wasn't a good environment. Physically, my health started to deteriorate in that my immune system started to shut down. I became very... I always had coughs and colds. I had kidney infections, chest infections. I was forever on antibiotics.
Just and I often notice that people focus on health issues. So when they start getting physical health issues, they go to the doctor and they start focusing on healing themselves in some way, but not taking into account the mental or stress strain that is actually perhaps causing some of those physical health issues. But it's more acceptable to go to the doctor for that immune system stuff than it is to go, hey, I'm struggling, Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what I kept doing, until, one of the other ones was anger. I became so angry. I'm not a confrontational person, hence I always walked away from the bullying in all situations in my life. So I'd always kind of not do, with conflict or confrontation, I would walk away from it. Yeah. But I became really angry. So I was just shouting at everybody, even my lovely parents, bless their heart. I would literally be shouting and having rows with them for no reason, just me and the way that I was. The anger became really bad. And it was at those points where I thought, I've got to do something about this. And then I got to the stage where I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning to go to work. I hated everything about my job. I used to sit there and cry in my office and think, get me out of here, and to the point where I ended up at the doctor's and was told that I had depression and clinical depression and severe anxiety being brought on by a series of events. So at that point, I knew that I had to do something. He told me I was two weeks before being hospitalised. So I had to make that decision to take a sick note that day, which was hard because I didn't like taking sick. I was clearly just one of these people that used to work. So hated that. Did you, and obviously I understand you can't talk about certain things, but did you ask for help at any stage, whether it was internal to work or external with friends or family, and sort of admit that you were struggling? No.
Right. Show no weakness.
Show no weakness. Don't be stupid. You can deal with this. What's the matter with you? Do you know what I mean? Get on, crack harder. On, cope. Everybody does it, don't they? Don't everybody just cope? You can do it. You're pathetic. There was all these things going on in my head.
It's like a strong inner dialogue.
Yeah, really bad. To the point of, you haven't got depression, you haven't got mental health. You've always been fine. You've always been strong. You've always fought back. Get on with it.
Yeah.
But that day when I walked out of the doctor's, I had this sick note in my hand, and I thought, two things really. First of all was, well, at least there's something wrong with me. At least I've got a diagnosis. A bit of a relief.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I felt like a huge failure. The stigma that goes with mental health is massive, and it's massive. The self-stigma is far greater than any stigma anybody else can put on you.
Yeah. So then it's the imagined external stigma as well.
Yeah, it was awful. And I just kept thinking, everybody's going to judge me. Everybody's going to have it's not right. I'm a failure. And the fact that for this 28, 30 years, I'd had this amazing career, rose to the top of my career in London, in Dublin, and in Wales. That was all that it was wiped out. I was useless. I was a failure. Nobody would ever trust me again. I wouldn't trust them again. So that all went. Wow. It was massive, and I had to take
none of your past achievements counted.
No, not one of them, and it didn't matter who told me that they did. I didn't believe them, and I couldn't hold on to any of that at all. None of it. It all became this black hole. I call them now my duvet days. I stayed a lot under my duvet. Didn't want to go out. Didn't want to come out. I became suicidal. I considered taking my own life. Yeah. I self-harmed. So I went through all of that stuff. And then, my parents, bless them, my mum, I had a kind of big fallout with my mum one day, and she said, look, either you tell the doctor everything that's going on here, because I'd been to the doctor, I'd been diagnosed, because I think you need something to help you. And she said, if you don't go, then I'm going to go and I'm going to find out how I can get you help, because this isn't
desperate.
You.
Yeah.
She was desperate, really desperate. And bless her, she says to me today, I wish I could have done more. And there was nothing more she could have done. I didn't reach out at work because I just felt that I would be seen as weak. So it was a massive weakness to have anything like that wrong. It was a very male-orientated environment because it was the railways.
Of course.
So
oh my goodness.
really felt like, it's because she's a woman.
Hysterical
not
woman.
Coping. So that was the sort of things I had going on in my head. Sure, it wasn't true, but it didn't. And I couldn't talk to my peers. Now, people ask me could I have talked to anybody? Yes, I think if they'd have said to me, look, we've identified there's some issues here. Your work isn't as, you're taking more time off work. There are serious issues in that you're not getting your reports in on time, all of this stuff. Are you okay? Would you like to talk to occupational health? Mm-hmm. Would you like to go to the employment assistance program? I probably would have said, yeah, maybe I should give it a go. But nobody ever did.
Oh, wow.
So I don't blame them per se. What I blame is their lack of understanding.
Yeah, the culture.
And their lack of education. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And that's what happens in a lot of big businesses.
Absolutely.
It's just the lack. And that's what I try to do today, is to go out and talk about these things to get people to understand what it's like. If you're managing people, these are the signs to look out for. These are the things you need to be doing and looking out for and speaking to these people about if these things are happening. Because nobody did that for me. Nobody said. And I think, now looking back, I realised I went off sick in 2009, but I look back now and realise this all started in about 2007, 2008.
Of course it did.
So people didn't notice because everybody was changing, the world was getting busier, So because of that, this gradual decline, nobody really picked it up. But again, I was really fortunate. My parents were very understanding. I was able to talk to them. My mum, I did go to the doctor. I was on my mum's recommendation. I was under the doctor anyway, but this was in the August. I was off sick. And I was I was given antidepressants or whatever, you want to call them. I was given medication. Mm-hmm. And I also started counselling. So those two things, and the family and support friends, really did kind of help get me through. But I had to take a year off.
You took a whole year off.
I had to take a year off to basically get back to any sort of normalization. I gave my notice and I took ill health redundancy in the November of that year, in November 2009, because I knew I could never, ever go back to work again in that environment or for that company. And I actually felt then I couldn't really work for anybody again because I didn't want to go through what I'd gone through. Makes sense. So I thought, I can't do that. I can't work for anybody. I don't know what to put on the form anyway. Why did you leave your last job? Or I'll just put depression and mental health. That's really gonna get me a job.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, did you think you'd never be back in a career again?
Yeah.
You thought that was
I
it?
did. I thought that was it. I thought nobody ever want to employ, nobody ever want to employ me. And anyway, I was so useless and, everything else. But it's amazing when you look at it and you think that was 9 years ago. Things have changed so much over that time. In the last 9 years now, with obviously all the campaigns that are out there, the Time to Change Wales campaign, the Mind, Heads Together. Do you know what I mean? You've got all these things. That it's coming out there now. It's got a much different profile today than it had 9 years ago. So I really didn't tell anybody. Even when I started my own business, I took a year out, and even when I started my own business, I didn't tell people why I was starting my own business. They used to say to me, why did you leave your corporate career? And I'd say, I just got ill really, and had some stuff going on, and so decided that I just thought I'd start my own business a go.
Is that because
it's still like that?
Yeah. Is that because you still felt a bit of shame about what had happened?
A bit of shame, yeah. I thought I'd be judged, big time. Never ever talked about it very much. And then in 2012, I started my business in 2010. And in 2012, I started doing some voluntary work for a campaign called Time to Change Wales. And they're in Time to Change England as well. But I did it originally trained with England, but then because I live in Wales, became part of that. And part of the being a volunteer for them is going out and talking about your experience.
Of course, yes.
and standing up in front of people and telling people what happened and your mental health and talking about stigma and discrimination.
Wow.
So I kind of joined them, and in the same time that I did that, I'd got my book published, which is called Made It Through the Rain.
Yeah.
And that chronicles my journey through that 12 months of what happened and how it felt to go through it and what it was like to go through it. And I thought, you know what? These two things together mean I'm going to have to talk about it.
Well, and I'm just curious, hold on a minute. I'm curious from the person who's like under the duvet, suicidal, just can't, you start accessing a bit of counseling and support. You're in deep shame about telling anyone about your story, even at the start of your business, right? And then it feels like a jump to go, and then I published this book, and now I'm talking for Time to Change.
I know.
And I'm
it's
like
gone
going,
2 years.
Oh my God, what was the first time like that you talked in front of people? And what was the little middle bit that actually got you to that point?
Basically, I did I did a lot of self-help. So I did a lot of reading around kind of, again, the law of attraction. You are what you think. Visualize the outcomes you want.
Oh, I love that.
I joined Sue Stone. I don't know if you're familiar with Sue, aren't you? I think. Are you familiar with Sue?
I'm not sure. What does she do?
She's basically an empowerment coach, and her story, she's written a book called Love Life, Live Life, and her book was prominent in my recovery in that it really talks about changing thought patterns. She talks about her own story, about how she was really down there and then turned everything around to be on Secret Millionaire on Channel 4 and all of that. And I thought, do you know what? I can do this. I'm going to one day stand on the stage with Sue Stone and I'm going to tell my story. That was my kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in 2011, I was really fortunate. I trained with Sue, became part of her foundation, Sue Stone Foundation.
Yeah.
And that was really the starting point of going out and starting to share my story. And then I worked with a local coach who was saying to me, you should put this into a book. You should tell people your story. I was like, I can't. Every time I had a conversation with her, I'd cry. I was like, right. No, I can't. It's too raw. It's too, And she was like, you can do this. You can do this. And I do have an ability to write quite quickly. I can write about 1,000 words an hour. So I'm very fortunate.
My goodness.
I just sit at my computer and it all comes out. So she sent me home one day, this local coach in Wales, and said to me, go home and start to write this. And I literally, in hours, I would say, would be something like 3 or 4 weeks, wrote about 16,000 words and sent it off to a publisher. And they accepted it and said that they would publish it.
What, the first publisher you sent it to?
Yeah, I put it online. No, seriously, I put it online. John Hunt Publishing, and sent them the manuscript, and they said yes, they would publish it. So again, pretty unheard of, I think. And I was like, oh, right, okay, well, it's out there now.
Wow.
And it was actually published in the same month that I joined Time to Change Wales.
You can't take it back now.
Can't take it back. And bless Sue Stone, she used to do stuff on Radio Wave or Bournemouth. She lives in Bournemouth, so somewhere down that way. And she invited me on to be interviewed on the show.
Yeah. And
to talk about my situation. And I thought, I can do that because it's in Bournemouth. I live in Wales, you see, so it's about 3 hours away. So no one's going to listen. No one's going to. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. And I always remember one of my friends actually said to me, because a really, really close friend, I told her about, the self-harming and stuff. And she said to me, don't tell anybody because you will be judged. So don't ever say anything. Right. Anyway, the night I went on the radio, I texted her and I went, you said not to tell anybody. I've been on radio.
I told everybody.
I told everybody. But it's in Bournemouth, so it doesn't matter. She was like, oh, my God. So anyway, that was the start of it. And then I started to go out with Time to Change Wales. The first couple of times I told my story was really nerve-wracking, it was really kind of scary, emotional. And I would get home, and funny enough, I would get home and cry, but I would also get home and sleep
because it really. What I refer to them as emotional hangovers, when you give so much of yourself, when you're really that vulnerable, And the next day or a couple hours later, it's like, fuck, what have I done? And you just feel like really empty, or I don't know. People have different.
Feel drained.
Symptoms.
I used to go home and get under the quilt, put the TV on, and then just go to sleep for a couple of hours. Every time I did a talk, every time and even now 9 years on, I still do work with Time to Change Wales. I'm actually their longest serving champion now.
Wow.
And done my talk for them, I think, way over 150 times.
Wow.
But I go out and do other events now and speak. I speak about lots of different subjects, but one of them is obviously 7 signs you're not coping. And even now, sometimes when I do them, I think, oh, you're really tired.
Yeah.
And it brings it back, it does bring it back. But now I know that it's helping other people. That kind of helps as well.
Completely. And I guess I highlight it because I want our listeners to know that just because that happens doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means your body's got to get used to it, and you need to nurture yourself a bit or have some self-care, like all those things. But the impact is so profound when we can
so profound. Yeah. And the one thing that I would say to any of your listeners now is, from the point of me thinking, I'm not going to tell anyone because they're going to judge me.
Yeah.
They do judge you, but they judge you for being inspirational and brave.
Nice.
And doing stuff that, I could never do that. That is something, that's amazing. And I don't do it for that.
No.
But I do it because the amount of people that have said to me, because you spoke out, I'm going to speak out.
Oh, that's the biggest reward, isn't it?
Oh, it is huge. Absolutely huge. I had one guy, I did a talk at a care home down on the South Wales coast, and he found my website and contacted me via my website and said, thank you so much for coming in to talk today. I have been suffering with my mental health for a while, and last year I tried to take my own life. I never told my manager. I just told her that I was off sick because I didn't want to. But today I went in and I've knocked on her door and I've had the conversation, and without you I wouldn't have done that. And you think, oh my God.
I do know what you mean.
And there was another one, just want to give you another really brief example, where I did a talk, and it was in a local housing association, and I went in on the Wednesday, did the talk, and on the Friday I had to go back in to do another talk because the other volunteer couldn't do it. So I went in and I said, oh, really sorry, it's me again. And they were like, no, it's fine. It's a different audience. But she said, I'm really glad it's you. And I said, oh, why? And she said, at the end of that last one you did on Wednesday, she said there was a gentleman that stood up and didn't actually say that he'd had any mental health issues, but was just talking in general about mental health in the workplace and things. And I said, yeah, I remember him. And she said, well, after it, she said he came up and said that he needed to talk to the management. And she said he came and told us he'd had issues for 20 years and had never felt able to come to us. And she said, we are now able to support him in ways we didn't even know he needed.
Of course. That's huge.
That's huge. And that is why I do what I do today, is because I want people to go, do you know what? It's okay to talk about it. And
there's more of us out there, right? Yeah, I think you were about to say.
Absolutely. Well, 1 in 4 reported to have mental health problems, as you know, but it's more likely to be 1 in 2. It's just people don't want to talk about it. And I urge anybody, if there's anything that's troubling you, even if you ring the Samaritans, they're free, they don't know you, they could be anywhere in the country, but tell somebody, tell a stranger on the bus, but get it out, talk to people.
And so what is the magic of saying it out loud?
I always say communication is the best medication. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and that's what I say to people is, once it's out there, it's like a relief. It's almost like it's like letting air out of a balloon. Do you know what I mean? Or if you want to think about it, and taking a cork, have a bottle of champagne. It's that kind of like feeling. It's out there, and once you've done it a couple of times, and people have responded in the ways that I've said people respond to me, that gives you more confidence, more reason to do it more, because you think, I need to help more people. I want to help more people speak out. I want to get it out there.
You see the impact, and you see the impact on your own mental health.
Yeah, and it's massively cathartic for me. Writing the book turned out to be that. That was huge.
I can imagine.
And people knowing who I am. People want to talk to me about it. You know, people will say, oh, you need to speak to Bev, have a chat to Bev. She'll understand. People tell me things and they say, I haven't told anybody else, but I know I can tell you. And so, because you'll understand, and you think, oh, how lovely is that? That people feel that they can say, what it is. And that can come from anybody. That's not me. I'm not a superhuman. That can come from anybody. You will have those reactions. So speak out, because
amazing. It's... part of that is you giving people permission by showing, your own vulnerability, and then they're able to talk about theirs.
Yeah.
And what if we would think, somebody who was in your state, and just give advice for a second, and we've said ask for help, so tell somebody, what's the very next thing that they might do just to support their journey back to health?
I think, it depends how far you are down that, but don't ever hesitate to get medical advice.
Yeah.
Not everybody has to go onto medication, but just making sure that the medics know what your situation is, and making sure that, if you are having physical ailments all the time, just see if there's anything underlying with that, but certainly get the help that you need, speak out, get some really good books. There's so much out there with self-help at the moment, like I say, Sue's book helped me. You can read The Secret, you can read, I don't know, there's loads of stuff around.
This is the age of information, right? So whether it's YouTube, podcasts, books, there's so many ways to sort of gather.
Audio books, all of those sorts of things. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I did at the time when I was going through it was tended to avoid negative news. I didn't have a TV for 18 months.
I love that. I do that as well.
Yeah, because I just think, the news is on at 10 o'clock. Most people go to bed at 10:30, 11 o'clock, don't they? So you think, well, why would you want to listen to that before you go to bed?
Yeah.
That is not going to be helping your sleep, Turn off the blue noise. Don't have your phones on next to your bed with them on, that they can cause disturbed sleep.
Yeah.
Which was happening for me. So all these little things, be good to yourself. I mean, people will ask me now about my recovery, and I say to people I'm in recovery. Thankfully, the depression isn't there. I'm not on medication anymore. I have counsellors that I know if I need to go and talk to them, I can. So that's there, and I have great family and friend support. But it's about acknowledging that I still have anxiety, so I can get anxious. I avoid caffeine. Caffeine brings on my anxiety. So find the triggers. If you're in situations and you think, like I got a sat nav. One of my triggers was getting lost if I was on journeys. I used to get in a terrible state and try and read a map. I can do without a sat nav. In the end, my lovely partner, who was also my best friend when I was going through all this stuff, he turned out to be just the greatest friend. And he said to me, well, I've got a spare sat nav. Well, I just use it. And now I wouldn't be without it. Simple things like that.
Yeah.
Try and read. I mean, last year I lost 2 stone in weight. I've started to read books again. And, I'm starting to do other things. I mean, I got into debt and all sorts of stupid stuff, which isn't stupid stuff, but it was just silly stuff for me,
Yeah, but it adds to the build-up, doesn't it?
It adds to the build-up. But I'm only now dealing with those things 9 years on, because I can only now deal with them. So there is still little things that are still going on.
Yeah.
From that. So just never stop learning. Just get some audio books, get some nice things, watch a nice film, read some books, eat well. I used to eat badly, and it took me a long time to get back out of that and to lose that.
Yeah. So looking after your body and your mind.
Looking after your body, maybe going for walks. If you don't want to go to the gym, get out in the fresh air as much as you can. The minute the sun shines, I am outside. That is me. I'm out there. I'll do everything outside. I eat outside. I just want to be outside and love the warm air. Even if it's not sunny, that warmth that you get from being outside. So spend as much time outside as you can, because I think that really helps. And surround yourself where possible with positive people. Join groups. Do all those things that feed your soul and feed your body and your mind. And over time, things can get better, they can improve and they will get better. And the dark days can be distant. They're far off in the distance. I don't think you ever forget them. I certainly don't forget them.
No, you don't.
But utilize them well. I say out of every experience comes a lesson. And they say, if you write a book about something you're expert in, if somebody had said to me, because obviously I wrote the book, I said I was going to go to Ireland to write the book. I did write the book. But people said to me, you'll become an expert in mental health and depression. I would have gone, you what? Really? Do you know what I mean? But that's what it's about, Don't see it as a cross to bear. See it as an experience to use to help other people. That's what I would say.
Amazing. So what is the biggest lesson you would say that you've gained from your adversity, from your burnout and your bullying?
Speak out. Always speak out. Speak out to somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a friend, a family, a stranger, your boss, the local, priest or vicar, Samaritans. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter who it is. Teachers. Speak to teachers. Speak to whoever,
friends, colleagues,
get help. Get help. Talk about it, because that's the first step in any recovery, is talking about it. Don't be alone with whatever it is. Just don't be alone. Like I said, I was really fortunate, I did have great support, great family and friends, an amazing doctor. I know that's not the same for everybody. I'm fully aware of that. But there are strangers that can help you. There are charity organisations that will offer help.
And what's amazing, what I'm hearing is almost you building your business and this new path in your life coincided with all this recovery learning. Yeah. So whereas you did need a year out just for your body to get to some sense of normality, it sounds like your recovery was going alongside doing things that were quite practical rather than just sort of thinking about the information. Yeah.
That's exactly what I did, was just take those one step at a time. And I say to people every single day, take one step, one baby step, whether it's starting a business, growing a business, changing your life, getting better,
changing your life,
losing weight. Yeah. Last year I thought, right, I'm going to lose 2 stone. And I did it one day at a time. I'm with my partner now. He's lovely. He was my first boyfriend when I was 17.
That's crazy.
So that's really lovely. I know. And he's just so special. He's the kindest person. And he was there the whole time. But he's a farmer as well, which makes it even more strange, because I did write the book. And I know.
It just wasn't in the exact order you thought.
Yeah. Thoughts bring reality. So honestly, you just think that. I always used to think, I'm going to go to Ireland, marry a farmer and write a book, and now I live with a farmer and I've written a book. There we go.
There's my lesson for the day. Just think it and it will happen.
Think it and it will happen. You've got to put little steps in. I had to tell him how I felt about him, which was a bit kind of like, I can't do that. And all my friends were like, you have to, because what if he ends up with someone else? I was like, that's a good point. So it's all little things. But you have to take those little steps, and you have to take action. Same with the business. Stay away. One of the big things for me, Petra, was comparisons. I do a lot of mindfulness now. Don't compare your life, your recovery, your illness. Don't compare it with anything else. Don't get caught up on the whole social media thing by looking at other people's lives and thinking, I can't do that.
Such a disease.
It's awful. Don't do it. Think about what you want. Think about who you are. Think about the things you want in your life. And educate yourself, and you will have that. I've got this thing up in front of me now in my office, and it says, wish it, dream it, do it. You can.
Wish it, dream it, do it. I think we found the title of the podcast.
There you go. That's it.
So exciting. Bev, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and to give me and the listeners so much wisdom. If people want to connect with you in some way or find out more about what you do, where can they find you?
You can find me at my website, which is www.awakencoaching.co.uk. You can check me out there and have a look. Yeah. You can find me on the social media platforms. So at Twitter, I'm at Awaken Life Coach. On Facebook, there's an Awaken Life Coaching page. I think it's called Awaken Coaching.
Lovely.
Keeping the Life in It was Awaken Coaching. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So you can find me under Beverly Jones on LinkedIn, and the Corporate Angel is all on there.
Perfect. You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere, yeah. If you want to listen, you can listen to my every Friday night between 5 and 7. I'm on a local radio station called NH Sound. So if you download the app, you can listen to my positive and easy listening show 5 till 7 on a Friday night.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Lovely. I'll look you up. We'll add all of those details into the show notes of the podcast. Bev, again, Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. If something helped you today, please do share this episode with a friend and let them know that they are not alone. I know that for me, isolation kept me stuck much longer than I needed to be. So let's practice courage and talk to someone about what's going on, as that's the first step to making life amazing. Check out my website, petravelzeboer.com, for your free Kickstarter plan, which will teach you to turn your biggest weaknesses into your greatest strengths. Join the community of people who are changing the way they view life's challenges and living life to the full. Until next time, goodbye.